kinai awa, kinai tātai tangana o nai waka, tēnā koutou.
Kia ora, Tim. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora tātou, no mai, haere mai. Can we just please note that before we introduce ourselves, that the meeting is being live streamed on Board's YouTube channel. And please remain muted when you're not speaking, and especially if you've got a dog like I have. Welcome to Public Forum presenters, board members and staff, and the board members and the staff will now introduce themselves, starting with Mel.
I'm Morena Melanie Kaka, Councillor for Spreydon.
Anybody?
Kia ora, my name's Callum Ward. I'm from Spreydon, board member for Spreydon.
Kia?
Morena Lee Sampson, I'm a deputy chair and I'm based in Cashmere.
Thank you, Lee.
Morena Tato, Kia Leslie, board member from Cashmere.
Thank you. Is that it?
No, it's me. That's it. Morena, everyone. My name's Tim Skendred. I'm the Christchurch City Councillor for Cashmere. Thank you.
Thank you. Starting with you, Joe.
Morena, Joe Wells, Community Governance Manager. Do you want to go next, Marie?
Kia ora, Marie Byrne. I'm going to be the acting Community Board Advisor while Amy's off overseas.
Thanks, Marie. Amy?
Kia ora, Amy Hart, Community Board Advisor.
And we have Jay.
Kia ora, JCP Community Development Advisor for Cashmere.
And Watani.
Watani Hema, Community Recreation Advisor for Waihoro Spreydon-Cashmere.
And Heather.
I'm Morena, Heather Davis, Community Development Advisor for Spreydon.
Thank you. And having all three, all the staff here is real. That's all the staff, isn't it? Oh no, Wendy's not here. But thank you. Having so many staff is a real honour. It's great to have you. Are there any apologies? Nobody leaving early? Are there any declarations of interest? Can I have a mover, please, for confirmation of the previous minutes?
Happy to move, Carolyn.
I'll second.
Thank you, Lee.
Happy to second, Carolyn.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
All those in favour, please say aye. Against, abstentions, carried. We're now in public forum, so it always seems really quick when we land on public forum so quickly. Public forum is a few minutes at the beginning of every meeting where anybody can come and speak to us in the public forum about any issue they wish to raise. And you're incredibly welcome, and we enjoy this part of the agenda probably the most. So Andy Beck, have we got you online?
You have. Can you hear me okay? Am I coming through?
Yeah, we can. Isn't it
marvelous.
all a miracle? Isn't it all a miracle?
We've all got much better with technology, haven't we, over these last couple of years?
Well, no. We have people like Amy. People like me have people like Amy around. So I've got no better. But Andy, you are so welcome. And we're very glad to hear from you. And you're going to talk to us about pedestrian access at the corner of Dyers Pass and Heathcote Roads.
That's correct, yes.
We are really familiar with, yes.
Good.
Thank you. Go ahead. Well,
first and foremost, thank you very much. Yes, my name is Andy Beck, and with my wife, Bronnie, we own the old Masonic, or formerly the old Masonic Lodge on the corner of Dyers Pass and Hackthorne Road. So we've owned this for about 3 years. And my wife runs what's turned out to be very successful Pilates business from that building. Now we're part of the community. We live within about 200 meters of that old iconic 100-year building. So when we acquired the building, one of the things we wanted to do was obviously run a successful business from it. But one of the other things we wanted to do was to bring it back to the community and make it part of the community. So, I mean, we have good relations with all the other businesses in the area. The school, which is obviously very key, we're right sat in the middle of the pretty much the school playground there. We've worked hard and we've got a very good relationship with Gavin and the team there. So Bronnie runs a teachers only Pilates class on a Thursday, which is heavily subscribed. We've let the school use the building, the big hall. Some of you may be familiar with the building. So the big room there when they've had teachers only a day events. So we allow them to use that free of charge. So we've worked very hard to sort of be a good part of the community. Now, unfortunately, the previous owner did not have such a good relationship with the community. And over time, what we've learned when we took over the building, when it was a Masonic lodge, the lodge was quite comfortable with the community cutting through off the top of Hackthorne Road down onto Dyers Pass to use the pedestrian crossing across that what is quite recognised as quite a dangerous corner. The previous owner made it very, very difficult, and his intentions very clear that he did not want the general public to come across his land, to the extent he even put some massive big boulders. These things were cubic meter boulders on that corner to try and discourage people coming across. So one of the things that when we took over, one of the first things we did, we sort of thought, well, we have no problem with people using it. The idea is to bring it back to the community. So we put a couple of signs up saying, please, whilst this is private property, please feel welcome to access it and egress through that dangerous corner, and just be respectful. And the community responded. I mean, I'm out there most weekends. It's not my day job. I do a lot of building spend a lot of time on the building maintenance, trying to bring a 100-year-old building back to life. And I get a huge amount of comments about thank you very much for allowing us to come through. So it's wonderful to see. And I also actually put some more steps down that corner to make it safer for people to come through. So the reason for coming to see you today is that, we are developing the building. We've got council consent and building consent, resource consent to expand the Pilates business and actually create a more commercial space. We weren't using the whole of the ground floor, and also to actually put an apartment upstairs that would be accessed off Hackthorne Road. So we're in that process of developing a building right now. But one of the things that we do want to do is that the corner of by the school crossing on Dyers Pass Road, to the corner of the Masonic Lodge there's actually a strip of land which is owned by the council. It's not owned by us. Now, one of the things as part of the next project is to improve the safety of that corner, and specifically we want to put some concrete steps or extend the concrete steps out from the base of what is our land across that corner and put some concrete down to the tarmacked area by the pedestrian crossing. And that comes across council land. So my proposal today is I'm hoping that the council will come forward and help us in this process financially and also planning wise, to improve that corner for the safety of everybody that utilises it.
Okay. Okay, I think I actually saw you the other day when I went up walking my dog at Victoria Park, because there were 2 or 3 people standing by the steps waving their arms.
Probably did.
Yeah. Are there any questions of Andy from the board?
I've got one if I can.
Yeah.
So Andy, have you approached any of the council before or with regards to this?
No.
Okay.
No.
Cool. Yep.
Anybody else?
Andy, just checking, have you just for us, would the steps still hug the building, or would they be separated from the building? And have you got maybe just a simplistic concept you could share, just so it's easy to discuss with staff? Or
yeah, so did you get to see my sort of pre-circulation? Hopefully.
Yep. It's attached to the. Yeah, it's attached.
I don't know whether probably the easiest way to describe it is almost the last photo on that, if you have it available in front of you.
Oh,
and it's looking from the corner of the pedestrian crossing back up the hill to the corner of the building. So if you do have access to that, the sort of our steps run down from the left-hand side of the picture, and then there's a door which gets into the under space under the building. Then I've extended the steps down to as far as I can on our land. Yes. Oh, thank you very much. I'm glad.
Oh, thank you. I haven't seen this. Thank you.
Oh, okay. So, and sorry if, yes, there's an earlier picture which actually shows that demonstrates the cut of land that is not ours. It's the school. There we go. If you could hold that school picture, sorry, one down, please.
Yeah, the
There we
site
go.
plan.
Perfect.
Right.
So there, that's the school fence looking back across our land. And you might be able to see there's a builder's sign there warning everybody to be careful. You can see some steps that I've actually put in myself to improve that. But then I could only go as far as our land. But you're pretty much looking directly across there, and to the right of that line that the school fence takes is council land. So to answer your question, Lee, what we'd like to do is sort of extend our steps a little bit on the left, across to join the steps that I've brought down to the side of the building there, and then a sort of concrete ramp across the council land down to the tarmac. Because the other thing, of course, with those steps that I've got there is that it's still pretty tricky because I couldn't remove one of the boulders, so I've had to put the steps around them. So we do see a lot of young moms naturally with the school being there with prams and that. So it is quite treacherous down that actual slope driveway as well. Yeah. So I kind of would like to concrete the whole that sort of driveway, do the steps, and also take that sort of gentle slope down to the existing tarmac.
Okay, that explains it better.
Sounds good to me.
So you, through the chair, if I can, Carolyn. So if we could have an find out which unit of council actually owns the land. And I'm presuming it'll be roading reserve, but you can only presume these things, and maybe have an on-site, because Andy, this is obviously a long-term thing.
Yes.
So I'm just thinking, and if we've got prams and older people using this, etc., we want to have it as safe as possible, and it's a really good way to kind of make that corner safe, because all the board, we've all been up there with Gavin and had a look at it. It is a concern to us, so maybe we haven't, through you, Carolyn, we have an on-site meeting, and because if we did it properly, we could probably work with Andy and pull out that boulder and make the steps a bit wider and a bit safer for young people and old people. And your thoughts?
Yeah. No, we've had a terrible time thinking about how kids get to school up there, and this would solve at least one aspect of it. The only thing that is that if we, the council, do something that is dependent on the retention of a privately owned piece of land in order for the traverse to be something that is permanent past your ownership, Andy, in the future, long way in the future, that we'd probably have to get some assumption of some kind of ability to traverse that piece of land in perpetuity.
Yeah, so a right of way, sort of like a right of way, I guess.
Yes, like a right of way. But these things aren't unanswerable. We have what we do in these things, Andy, is that we don't make decisions now, and we don't presume to make decisions now. What we will do is ask for advice and get the staff to come back to us with your proposal. And it's a really good thing that we've got something so concrete to discuss with them. And your photographs and things indicate a really good indication of that. Something that we can discuss with them, and we will do that straight away.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for that. So what I mean, I guess the next stage is we sort of try and identify then who is responsible for that land, and then maybe have an on-site meeting. Would that be the
exactly and there will be representatives from your area on the board at that meeting. And thank you very much for taking the time. Thank you very much for your contribution. It's been really interesting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
Okay.
And it's very generous of you guys. Cheers.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We don't need a mover or a seconder. We just need general consensus. Has everybody agreed?
Yep.
Thank you. Amy, we just assume that we're asking just generally for the best advice. If we could add some urgency on this, I mean, it would be a great thing if we could get this done, for instance, by the 4th term or something like that. That would be wonderful.
That would be wonderful, because I mean, hand in hand, the building is being developed at the same time. So So and it is, it's not only an eyesore, but it is a safety thing. And the commercial business is going from strength to strength, and so
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
No problem. Same to you.
Bye-bye.
So if we could have some urgency attached to the wording of the seeking of advice. Sorry, Marie, am I right? Marie, you're going to be following up?
Oh, you're muted, Marie.
Yes, I've made a note that you would like to have some staff for advice, a possible idea of a possible site meeting.
Yes, and if we could attach some urgency to it, please.
It'd be great to get it done by next winter, wouldn't it? Because I mean, it's all right kind of now, but boy, when it gets slippery, I mean, it's clay, isn't it?
I think the legal may take us longer than the physical, actually.
As always.
But okay, moving on. We've now got Gareth Wright, who's done some history of Marylands, which is an issue which will be before the board for various reasons, well, some serious reasons, which will be coming before the board in the next few months, and that which we will want to know this history in the context of it. Gareth has come forward with a really well-researched piece of history on the history of the land where Maryland School sits, and to have this kind of advice before we have to discuss the serious issues coming up is an excellent coincidence. So, Gareth, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, isn't it great? It's so amazing. And everybody's houses are amazing as well. Gareth, you know there are time limits on this, but yes, you also know that I'm going to be generous. But there are time limits. So if you can go for it, that would be really, really good. Marie or Amy have one of them got your piece. What am I saying?
I can share your PowerPoint now, Gareth.
That'd be great. Thank you for that.
And welcome, and thank you, Gareth.
Thank you, Carolyn, for inviting me to make this presentation. Okay, so everyone can see the. There we go. There we are. Right. Okay. Well, in my day job, I'm actually a heritage advisor at council, but I'm here in a. Well, I'm also secretary for the Addington Neighbourhood Association, and I guess I can be here in that capacity. So, so we'll crack into it. So the image you have in front of you is Sir John Hall, a leading 19th century Canterbury politician who served as Premier of New Zealand in the 1880s. Today, he's best remembered for his work with Kate Shepherd and the Women's Christian Temperance Union to achieve women's suffrage in 1893. When he was at home in Canterbury, Sir John lived mostly at Terrace Station in Hororata, but in 1857 he also purchased a 70-acre farm in Middleton near Christchurch that he called Riseholme. And if you can just flick to the next slide, Amy.
Gareth, can you be really this? Oh, good on you.
Right. So I put that in because, of course, the spelling is very similar to Riseholme in Opawa, which was the Reeves property, the Reeve family property. I'm not quite sure why they selected such similar names, but Sir John Hall's property was called Riseholme without the ing. And the name Riseholme was taken from a village on the outskirts of Lincoln in Lincolnshire. In the 19th century, it was the site of the Episcopal Palace of the Bishops of Lincoln. And the name, of course, would have appealed to Hall because Riseholme Farm was located between Lincoln Road and Middle Lincoln Road, which was later renamed Wigram Road. Okay, next slide, please, Amy. Okay, so John Hall never actually lived at Riseholme as far as I can work out, but at various times he seriously considered doing so. And in the mid-1880s, he went so far as having plans drawn up for a large house by prominent British architect R.A. Briggs. Now, the economic depression of the 1880s put paid to that idea. However, but for most of the time that John owned the property, it was managed by a family called Morland, William and Sarah Morland, and they were there for probably close to 40 years. On Sir John's death in 1907, and next slide, Amy. So on Sir John's death in 1907, Riseholme was inherited by his son, Dryden, who was a city councillor. Dryden promptly extended the Morlands' modest farmhouse into a 15-room mansion. This was, however, to be his home for less than a decade because he sold the property to the Sisters of Nazareth in 1916. Okay, next shot, Amy. Okay. So the Sisters of Nazareth, a Catholic religious order, arrived in Christchurch in 1905, and in 1910 they opened Nazareth House on Brougham Street to care for orphans and the elderly. In 1915, their Mother General visited from England, and she suggested it would be a good idea to keep the boys separate. Consequently, the following year, the order purchased Riseholme, opening St. Joseph's Boys' Home there in 1921. By the 1930s, when this image was taken, St. Joseph's was evidently a large institution. And just so you can orient yourselves, that road running across the top of the picture is Annex Road.
That one that goes up.
That's the one across the back of the.
That one. Right.
Yes, there's a vehicle on it just there, but that's Annex Road.
I thought you were talking about the hedge. Gareth,
Right.
you skipped a bit then. You didn't actually say the sentence, then they established a school, or was it an orphanage?
Okay,
They separated the boys from the girls, that was when we first heard that it was a home for kids.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. So as I say, Nazareth House and Brougham Street they had both orphans and the elderly there, both boys and girls. And the Mother General suggested they should keep the girls and the boys separate. So they took the boys, opened St. Joseph's Boys' Home to look after the boys, and just kept the girls and the very young children in Nazareth House. Okay, so moving on, and just by the way, that you can just see in the center of that previous photo there, you can just see the remains of Dryden Hall's house. You can just right in the center, there's a, okay, the next shot, Amy. Right, so the Sisters of Nazareth ran St. Joseph's Boys' Home for 30 years until 1952, when they took their youngest charges back to Nazareth House and handed the older boys over to the care of the priests of the Congregation of the Sacred Hearts of Jesus and Mary, also known as the Picpus Fathers, which is an order that no one ever seems to have heard of. And this photo here was taken on the day that the sisters left the home in 1952. I actually found these images. They weren't in New Zealand. I actually wrote to the order in England. Their head office is in London, and Hammersmith in London, and they sent me these photos. So it was the Picpus Fathers who renamed the institution Marylands, possibly to avoid the confusion with St. Joseph's Orphanage, which the Sisters of the Good Shepherd had opened at nearby Mount Magdala in Horswell in 1936. I don't know why they used the same name, but it must have caused considerable confusion. Okay, and the next image, Amy. Okay, so this is the Mount Magdala site. So in 1955, the Picpus Fathers reluctantly relinquished control of Marylands to another order, the Hospitaller Brothers of St. John of God, who refocused the institution on the care and education of those boys regarded as retarded, to use the terminology of the time. In the late 1950s, part of the Marylands property was sold to the Crown for the development of the newly planned Southern Motorway. And I'm not sure people realize how early the Southern Motorway was planned. It was actually authorized in 1952. And they agreed the route in 1955. It only took another 50 years to build. Bigger change came in December 1966, when after 11 years in charge, the brothers sold the remainder of the Middleton site to Waimarie County Council for the development of what is now the Birmingham Drive industrial area. Maryland School was then relocated to the former Mount Magdala site in Horswell. And this is a photo of the Mount Magdala site. The Mount Magdala had existed since the 1880s, but it had closed as a female reformatory in 1965. And so at that stage, the old Middleton buildings and associated cemetery, which is another issue, were cleared away between 1967 and 69, and their site today is the Marylands Reserve.
Can you orient us here? Because I'm not very good at maps and things. Can you orient us here?
On the Mount Magdala site?
This one we're looking at right now.
That's right. Okay, so Mount Magdala here, there's only one of those buildings which still stands, and that is the chapel in the center of the picture. And so this is the St. John of God site today. And in the foreground there is the 1936 St. Joseph's Orphanage, which the sisters operated. But and off to the buildings on the left-hand side is where Hope Horsville Residential College is today.
And what about that road there? That is
in the foreground. That would be Nash Road, I think.
In the front, Nash Road, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So Maryland's continued on its new site, on this site here, until 1984, when it became the state-run special school, Holborn School, which, as I say, is now Horsville Residential College.
Where would Ngā be now? Here?
Ooh, probably well, it would be that there's those paddocks in the background would be Ngā
right.
Yep, that's right. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so next shot, Amy. All right, so here's an aerial of Maryland's, the Middleton site. This one here, I think, is 1965. So this is just a couple of years before it closed on that site. And this was a slide I used in a presentation I gave last year, which Mel actually attended. And it was specifically on the cemeteries which existed at the site, and that's what the two red rings are, but they help you orientate the site. The top left-hand side, by the way, is the Sisters Cemetery. It was a dedicated cemetery for the Sisters of Nazareth, it was exhumed in 1967, and the sisters were all reinterred in Ruru Cemetery. Okay, and so the next shot is the site today, with the same two sites ringed. So you can see top left is where the Sisters Cemetery was, and the other ring off to the right, and the buildings were more or less in the center of the picture there.
So what's the red ring at the bottom? What's that one?
Okay, so it was a little bit of a story. The sisters realized when they took the site over that they wanted a cemetery there, and they had one surveyed. And then shortly after, the Mother General visited from England again, and she said, well, you shouldn't have a cemetery so close to the buildings. You might want to use that land for future expansion. And so she told them they should survey another cemetery. And so they gave up on that one and surveyed the left-hand side one instead.
Right. Gotcha.
Okay. So moving on to the next picture. Okay, there we have a map of Birmingham Drive area today, taken off Smart Map. So if renaming the places associated with Marylands goes ahead, the extent will depend on whether those names associated with the Sisters of Nazareth are also tarred with the same brush. If they're not, Marylands Reserve could be reasonably renamed as St. Joseph's Reserve. If that's perhaps too political, it could be Riseholme Reserve. Of course, that invites the confusion with Risingholme and Opawa. Alternatively, another name could be Sir John Hall Reserve. Sir John's presently commemorated in Hall's Place off Birmingham Drive, which is a tiny little place. It's not even named on this particular map, but you can just see it there to the right of the reserve. But this minor cul-de-sac, it's a poor memorial to a major political figure not otherwise commemorated in the city. I note that part of Wrights Road to the west of Addington Racecourse was actually called Hall's Road until the 1970s. And the other place which has an immediate connection with Marylands is Marylands Place. That could potentially be renamed Moreland Place, M-O-R-L-A-N-D, to remember the family who managed Riseholme for the Hall family for close on 40 years.
And what about Midas Place? Why is a place called Midas Place?
That's a very good question. I don't know that. I have no idea.
Someone with a lot of gold.
Possibly, yes. I notice we've also got, of course, a Nazareth Avenue over there, which commemorates the Sisters of Nazareth, and Magdala Place, which was a curious selection because the Maryland site had never had anything to do with Mount Magdala until they relocated there in 1966, 67.
So that seems a misnomer in a way.
It's a little bit of a misnomer in that it connects with the Sisters of the Good Shepherd and the Mount Magdala site rather than this site. But I suppose it does commemorate the fact that they did relocate there.
Okay. That was very succinct compared to when you discussed it with me, but it was nonetheless.
Okay, I tried to keep it short.
No, I know you did. But you told me more stories in the other one. But excellent stuff to know. Has anybody got any questions for Gareth?
I'm just kind of looking at the map there. I mean, it's pretty boring, isn't it? Print place, craft place. Vulcan's quite exciting, but the other two are,
No,
Yes.
I think some street names are the most boring things that I've ever heard of.
I wonder if there is a printed down print place. Just saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, well, it doesn't get much more boring than Annex Road, but it's been Annex Road for well over a century. In fact, it's always been Annex Road for whatever reason.
I wonder where the annex was.
I wonder. Yes, that's right.
It'd be interesting, as you say, Gareth. It'd be interesting, and of course, we'd have to have a look and see if there's anything to do with Maori history along here as well. It'd be interesting to even have a look at that.
That's right.
Thank you very much. Is there any other questions? Thank you very much, Gareth.
That's all right.
It's excellent to have got that kind of information. I feel like
really interesting.
we should employ you, and every month or so you should come up with some other history of where we live, because we know very little about where we live. Thank you very much, Gareth.
One thing I wanted to, can I just say, it's really, I was really pleased that this is being recorded so we can go back and watch it, because I always forget details that Gareth has said. It's great.
That's exactly right. We do forget details, and we forget to ask further questions as well. Thank you very much, Gareth. It's a pleasure.
I'll probably get round to writing it up and putting it on the ANA website at some point. Graham's been trying to get me to do it, so
is there any of our other areas that under discussion at all that you know quite a bit about?
I don't know. It depends what's under discussion. Possibly, possibly. This came out of my interest in Addington's history, of course.
Yeah.
So in particular, I know a fair bit about Addington.
I tell you what, I'd like to talk to you about, and I'm not going to keep on dribbling on because otherwise we'd be here till lunchtime. But I would really like to hear about off Lincoln Road, around about where the Court Theatre is. I'd like to know about that area. And
yes, I was very interested in the bridge proposal which came out the other week, and of course most people don't realise that is the historic location of the Addington Overbridge, in that exact location.
Oh, really?
Yes. It crossed over from that corner on into absolutely the exact location of the historic railway overbridge. So the station was just to the right of that, to the east of that.
Have you got any photographs or anything of that?
Yeah. There's a few kicking around. Yes. It was pulled down at the end of the 1960s.
I remember it took 50 years for the Southern Motorway to actually come into, so they've gone full circle, got rid of the Rip Bridge, then they're going to build another one.
That's amazing, Gareth. I'd love to see that.
Okay.
I can look it up myself.
I'll find it and send it to you. Okay.
That would be great. Thank you, Gareth.
Cheerio.
Bye-bye.
Yes, Gareth, thank you.
Presentation. Oh, Rebecca. Oh, no, that's in deputations. Sorry, so that's public forum. We've now got deputations, and we've got the Howard Simeon Street intersection, and Rebecca Finch has written to us, and she has got a letter in correspondence, and she wishes to speak to her letter on the agenda. Is Rebecca there?
Yep. Kia ora, ko Rebecca, taku ingoa. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you.
Hang on, Rebecca. Hello. And is everybody okay? Okay, Rebecca. You've got a maximum of 10 minutes. That includes questions. But we have your proposal. And did you hear what Gareth just said about, that was interesting, wasn't it? But we are now talking about where you live, and that's what we're interested in hearing today, the intersection of Howard and Simeon Street. Go ahead.
Just briefly, Carolyn, were you talking about the overbridge over the railway line? Yes, I wanted to tautoko Chloe's submission, and it looks like maybe reinstating a bridge that used to be there.
I know. But go ahead.
I'm all for that, because I walked from my office in Hazeldean Road to my dentist at the top of Rickton Road last week, and if that overbridge had been there, I would have been using it.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm here today, to talk about the intersection of Simeon Road and Simeon Street and Howard Street, and further down Howard Street about the possibility of doing some climate adaptation work and the establishing of some native trees along Howard Street. I have spoken to, just briefly, Addington Primary School, which obviously, as you all know, is a hub for the area. I spoke to Jo briefly. She said that in principle, she definitely supports upgrading that intersection with the provision that it is also a bus route, so need to take that into consideration, and yeah, I'm supportive of that. I came up, well, it's not my idea, it was on the Brown Street Facebook page. Someone posted the picture of how an intersection very similar to the Howard Street, Simeon Street could look with some upgrading and increasing safety for that area. And I thought, what a great idea. I found the time to put a proposal in or write you a letter. So, yeah, so for me, it's about safety for the children. There's many children that walk along the street where I live to school and home again. It's making that intersection safer for people with other abilities. I think someone on the Facebook page, Brown Street Facebook page, suggested that she parks there a lot and she didn't want it to be harder for her she has some mobility and other issues, for her to get out of her car and visit people in the council houses that are there off Simeon Park. I'm sure all of those things can be taken into account in considering this. I think it fits with the grand narrative that the Christchurch City Council put into place with Ngāi Tahu and incorporating Ngāi Tahu values, some of which off the top of my head are things like for us and our children, for safety, for mahingakai, and wairurotanga, and spiritual health. So trees for me are a wonderful way that we can connect with spiritual health. And really it's about safety and adaptation for climate. And whilst we're thinking about Brown Street and the safety issues there, which is really important, it's a really dangerous crossing. I was standing there this week at the crossing. There was a little child opposite me at that Brown Street crossing, only pint size, and these two massive trucks on both those lanes, with an articulated truck with a trailer on the back, came speeding through there, and it was like, my God, we're within inches of being killed. And so I'm really pleased that, that Brown Street is being looked at, and I wanted to extend that to look at this, Addington School. So have I got anything else I wanted to say? Yeah, just that it extends the narrative that the council have of planting native trees and safety and Ngāi Tahu values, and bringing that into the suburbs, really.
Thank you. I couldn't agree with you more, Rebecca, if I can be so forceful as to say that. I'm going to ask other people if they want to ask you any questions, but your correspondence is self-evident and quite detailed. So if there are very few questions, it's not through lack of interest, it's because we know what you mean to say and what you are saying. Any questions or extrapolations from anybody on the board?
Callum has got his hand up.
Callum, thank you. Go for it, Callum.
Thanks, Rebecca. Yeah, just want to echo what Carolyn said, that, fully support this idea. I mean, it's something that I know the school's been concerned about as well. That school, Addington School, unfortunately, is kind of surrounded on all three sides by dangerous access points for pedestrians. And I think that Howard Street intersection as well is a key link in a whole wedge of southwest Christchurch has to go through that part of town if they want to get into the city via a active mode of transport. So yeah, I think that's a really, really critical point that we need to look at improving the safety for. I was wondering if you or anybody else in the Brown Street group on Facebook have approached council staff about this to sort of look at maybe ideas for improvement. I think that'd be something that, yeah, I'd be really keen to ask staff around this as a potential candidate for the Streets for People program that's coming out that we've expressed interest in. So yeah, I think this could be a good opportunity.
Yeah, I'd definitely be willing to do that, Callum. I'm not au fait with the processes of governance, so if someone can put me in the right direction, I'll.
Oh yeah, no, you've come to the right place. No, yeah, just wondering if there were other conversations that we needed to kind of tie in as well. But no, that's yeah.
Well, the only other conversation that I am in with council about is Simeon Park and getting some more native plantings in there, and that's progressing. Although the small group that we had, and we haven't put a proposal to community board yet, the small group I've had is a little bit discombobulated from COVID and not wanting to catch it, and meetings have not been very regular this year, but I'm keen. So all of that is part of the talk around Addington Primary School. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks for your work.
Anybody else want to comment?
It's Melanie.
Yes, thanks, Melanie.
Thanks, Rebecca, for bringing this to us, because it actually, yeah, I mean, basically your whole presentation talks about the key things we're thinking about, like the cycling, because actually there's lots of access we need to think about to get to the major cycleway routes. Are you thinking of not just that T intersection, but also the trees on Howard Street as well, or mainly just that T intersection?
I would like to see the upgrade of Howard Street, maybe even Hillier Place and that other small street, I've forgotten the name, where the council housing are, included in taking this narrative from the council of, you know, plantings and trees and mahangakai and children into the suburbs. So yeah, I'm keen. We've down Howard Street, we've got the big old gutters, and we've got a massive amount of, what do you call the berm is very it's high in the middle of the road and going down to the gutters. It's quite rough along Howard Street for children walking and biking because nothing's happened since the earthquakes. I meant to talk to Keith up the road because he's just had some more new asphalt put on his pathway. I don't know if he's paid for that himself or whether council have done that. I'm really not sure, but I wanted to talk to him. But yeah, I'd like to see Howard Street tree-lined, native trees. I think a lot of our tree-lined streets are quite Pākehā, and I'd really like to see some of those natives. And being a bit of a corridor I know that that's a plan of the council, so yeah.
And it's just as a follow-up, we've sort of been, as a board and other parts of the city, looking at interim sorts of measures, like especially to make crossing points on roads and at intersections narrower by doing planter boxes and paint, like cheap things to start with, which would help with the issue with kids crossing the road, and then eventually, you know, over time we could improve that. Would you think that would be a good place to start? If that, I don't know, if, you know, if staff said that maybe it would be something we could do to start with.
Without thinking long about it, and just my, you know, impulsive response to that, Melanie, is I'm not keen on interim measures. I'm not keen on spending money. I've seen planter boxes on that new ferry road, and the council paid, I was at the council meeting, they paid I don't know, $180,000 for these fancy things from Canada to be imported. And I went there the other day and they're broken. You know, there's 2 or 3 of those are broken. They weren't supposed to break. They were supposed to be flexible enough. And the planter boxes, no, I want to see trees in the ground that will grow and last 150, 200 years. Addington School may have a different opinion. They may want some sort of interim measure around the intersection part. I can't speak for them. I haven't asked them that. My response would be no, I'm not keen on interim measures.
Oh, great. And I put a link in about the Howard Street name. There's a whole lot of information on library web pages about street names.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Mel. Any others? I can't agree with you more. And the tree-lined streets are in the posher suburbs and not so much in the unposher suburbs. And this is something that I've constantly nagged about. We have had an internal bias against planting natives on the berms, as you know, and as you've observed. And I find that very frustrating. And so the two of issues combined, planting of native trees and the planting of native trees on our berms, to remind us of where we live and how we live and the people that we live with, and the fact that our children should grow up amongst native trees and indigenous species, and the fact that exotic trees don't last in New Zealand's climate anyway, and they don't drop leaves, native trees, which is a biggie for residents. All of these things combine to make me think that we should be greening our suburbs. Linwood, our neighbouring community board, has got a project called Greening the East, and I've always been a bit jealous that they pinched the idea of it, and that's the idea of planting natives in the east of their rohi. So I would be very much in favour of greening Addington. And thank you very much for coming to us. We're going to seek advice. We're going to I'm going to suggest to the board right now that we refer your proposals to the staff and ask them for their comments about what can be done on this intersection. I have to be honest with you and say hard work, when by that I mean real substantial work on streets, is really difficult in these financial times. The deep ditch gutters that you and I have on our streets, and I've got them on my streets as well, that project, if it had carried on the way it was doing before the earthquakes, would have finished last year. The deep ditches would have been gone all over Christchurch last year. That was the timetable, which is dispiriting and heartbreaking, but as a consequence of the earthquake and the kinds of work that we've had to do underground and how much it's costing the council. So I'm not going to be optimistic and say we can get this done. I am going to be optimistic and say I'm sure we can get your idea about native trees addressed. And we hope to be able to do that. Thank you very much for coming to us.
Thank you.
Can I have a mover and a seconder?
Carolyn, sorry,
Yes,
just a minor process thing.
Yeah. You're right.
Do you want to move to the item of correspondence?
Yes, that's what
and then okay, you are moving to that, and then
I'm looking at the item of correspondence number 7.
Yeah.
If we can jump to that, which is to receive the correspondence and refer the issues raised, particularly the planting of trees, but also the busy intersection on the south side of Addington School at Simeon and Howard. Refer the issues raised to staff for advice. Can I have a mover, please?
Could I just add a wee note in there to
maybe
just consider the suitability for the Streets for People program, if that's
that's a really good idea, Callum. With the agreement of the rest of the board, can we add Callum's suggestion of what is it called again, Callum? Sorry.
Streets for People, I think.
The Streets for People, I think it is too. The Streets for People program, we'll get the staff to do the appropriate wording. They'll know. So if we can add that, please. And Callum's moving with the inclusion of that. Can I have a seconder, please?
I can second it.
Thanks, Mel. That's appropriate that you do. Is there any discussion?
I'm glad this has come to us, that's all.
Yeah,
thank you.
I'm glad it's come to us as well. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, abstentions, carried. And just to make sure that Amy doesn't come in again, did people vote? Did everyone vote? Thank you.
I voted. Yeah. They're all giving a thumbs up.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. And we move back to number 6, presentation of petitions. There are none. And then we move to item of correspondence, proposed speed limit reduction in Addington. My God, Addington's having a day. the proposed speed limit reduction in Addington, and this is a letter from Graham Robinson on behalf of the Addington, the ANA, and everybody will have read that. Is there any discussion?
It's from Kathy. It's from Kathy.
Just from Kathy, yeah.
Oh, Graham.
Kathy's the chairperson.
Oh, of course it is. Sorry, because Graham referred to it at the meeting last week, didn't he? That's what got me thinking it was from Graham. Sorry about that. From the chair of the Addington Neighbourhood Association. Is there anybody? Can I have a mover and a seconder for the resolution? Where am I?
Just received correspondence.
Received the correspondence, yes.
Yep.
Can I mover?
Yep.
I can move.
Callum?
Callum can second.
I'll move or second.
Second. We'll reverse it. Mel moved, Callum seconded, that we received the correspondence. Is there any discussion?
I agree.
Could we just follow up? Because we've asked for this before.
Yeah, we have.
And so if we could follow up, and also because there have been some changes with Waka Kotahi's attitude, because, like when we first started this, they were, I've got a word for them, but I won't use it soon in a public meeting, but they are a lot more open now. So perhaps there would be some movement to allow our staff a lower
speed limit.
Yeah.
This, if I'm speaking to it, this makes me absolutely furious. If there ever was a suburb that needed a 30k speed limit, it's Addington. And if ever there was a suburb which has pressed in the most polite and respectful way on this issue consistently for years and years and years, it's Addington. So I would like our board to add that we strongly support this issue as raised by the people from Addington.
And could we use the, if you go to Sumner Village, which is a lovely, it's very nice, it's 30 Ks. So
what about Boston? Boston's 30 Ks.
Yeah, so if we could just, put those in as examples just to give it a shovel on, because I just think it's appalling. It really is appalling.
Sumner is 30k.
And we started arguing for this before they even were on the table.
Exactly. Sumner 30k. Ferry Road, of all the roads, is 30k now. It's going through Woolston. Unbelievable. And we can't get 30k in a suburb with the narrowest streets in Christchurch and children everywhere. So if we can, Marie, can we just say that, add some wording there to the effect that we have other suburbs now with 30k, that this has been a long-standing issue, that Addington is one of the most built-up areas in Christchurch with the narrowest of streets, but a high population, including children, and that this is justified. This is 30k is very strongly supported by the board.
And with the UPS, with regards to intensification, it's also one of the most intensified suburbs in the city. So
that's what I meant by highly developed. It's got the apartments, it's got the tall buildings, it's got the townhouses. It's the most heavily populated suburbs per area in Christchurch, and it's going to be even more heavily populated. If we can include these issues, Marie, heavily populated and
so would you like to
long-standing.
Would you like to add that not only do you receive the correspondence, but that you wish to request that the 30-kilometre speed reduction zone is reconsidered?
And reconsidered urgently.
Yep.
And particularly given the intensive housing in Addington, the narrow streets, and the desire for the request by the people of Addington that has been of long standing, over 10 years.
And
I think it's also worth.
Should we also mention that in light of the changes with Waka Kotahi's, that they should be anyway.
Oh no, that's a good idea, Tim. Particularly in light of the changes that have occurred in Sumner and Woolston.
I think there's actually one they're looking at in Papanui as well. So we've been arguing for this for years.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
If we could include all of these factors, Marie, that would be great. We don't need to have them in front of us because we trust you guys to put it up. But if we could include all those factors.
And the fact that the council would have actually voted for 30k last time if it had been an option for them to vote for, because there was a discussion for about an hour, remember?
Yeah,
Yes,
and
and it caused
Wakatahi was
uproar.
and the
It caused
Wakatahi
uproar.
attitude was the
Discussion
one
went
that
on.
stopped it.
Yeah, and that's right. And it went on for hours.
Yeah, it was your finest moment, I think, Melanie.
We can raise.
I just watched with Carolyn.
Yeah. But because when we present this to the board, and we will, to the council, I mean, and we will in our report, that is a very important issue to raise, Tim. Good on you. Good memory.
Can I just add as well to that, Carolyn?
Yeah.
I think it'll be worth, given that we've made some changes already around Selwyn Street, and there's also been the 40k put in on Harmon Street, that it could be worth collecting evidence of whether that's changed driver behaviour, because I would suspect, like my personal experience of Harmon Street is that people are actually obeying that 40k speed limit. It'd be good to know if that's true for Rosewarne as well, with the new 30k, so that would add.
Not with Eric around, Callum. You were
no, yeah. We'll just have to give Eric a bit of a hard word around that, and just not for the next month or so while council's measuring.
Eric was hilarious at the Addington meeting the other night. He said he went down 50k in Rosewood Street. You can't even go 30 in Rosewood Street. Oh, he was really funny. That is a very good point to make as well. That driver behaviour has been driven to some extent by the limits that already exist.
Because I just conscious of the fact that people often say speed signs don't change behaviour.
Exactly. That's what they've constantly said to us. They won't lower the speed limit until the traffic's already going at that speed, which is amazing to talk about when you think of Ferry Road. With all of those factors in the resolution,
Carolyn,
can
I just make a comment? You might not need all of those points in the resolution itself. If Marie, I'm guessing will include all of those in the minutes above, so the resolution would be much briefer.
Okay. That's fair enough. As long as we can have it attached to the resolution when it goes in. Yeah, that's fair enough. We will leave you to sort it out, and we've got a mover and a seconder. Anybody else want to raise any other issue associated with this? All those in favour, please say aye. Against, abstentions, I'm saying carried unanimously. Am I right? Can I have a thumbs up? Thanks, everybody. Okay. Bus markings, and we have a presenter. We've got Sarah. Proposed bus stop markings in Rose Street. Hello, Sarah.
Oh, hello. Hi. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can, and it's good to have you. I can't believe the swiftness with which you've acted. Do you know what I'm doing? I'm tossing off flies. I've got flies, which is a terrible thing to admit, but I'm throwing them away.
Oh dear.
Yeah, no. So I can't believe with the swiftness with which you've acted. So we're talking about the issue of the bus stop on Rose Street.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So this report outlines a request to put line marking at the bus stop outside 131 Rose Street. It's currently unmarked, and we had requests from the school and from ECAN saying that there were too many parked cars surrounding this bus stop, and the bus was having difficulty pulling in and out. It's also serviced by a school bus, so we've got lots of school kids using that bus, particularly in the afternoons. About 35 are using it, and it coincides with the pickup as well for parents. So the area gets quite chaotic, and not having the bus being able to pull in close and parallel to the curb adds to that chaotic road environment. So we went out to consultation last year on the 22nd of October, and it closed on the 5th of November. During that consultation, we consulted on two aspects, which was the line marking and the shelter. The shelter was dealt with as a separate issue. It went to a hearing panel, and then we discussed it 2 weeks ago whether a shelter should go in there or not. So this report is just about the line marking.
Yeah.
We had one person that objected to the line marking on the grounds of parking loss. So
outside their house.
Outside their house. So it's a little bit deceptive with parking loss there. So we've got a bus stop sign on the boundary of 133 Rose Street and 131 Rose Street. And so without any line marking, you're not allowed to park 6 metres either side of that bus stop sign.
Yeah.
So technically, 133 House 133 Rose Street should only have one parking space there, which they've retained in the design, and the parking loss is actually outside 131 and 129 Rose Street. But in reality, what's happening is that there's parked cars outside 133 because the parking rules around bus stops isn't really well understood.
Okay. We understand though. We understand, and we understand the resolution as well. Right. Can I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation on page 19, please?
Yeah, I'm happy to move, Carolyn, or second. Happy to move or second.
No, move, Lee. Yep. And who's seconder?
Oh, you're muted, Tim.
Yep.
Tim was waving his hand.
I'll second. Yep.
Okay, thank you, Tim. We've got a mover and a seconder. Are there any questions you'd like to ask of Sarah? No questions? No issues? All those in favour, please say aye. Against, abstentions, carried. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
The board knows the issue about outside Cashmere High's exit onto Rose Street, and we know the issues. We're very familiar with the issues because we've discussed that bus stop, on the last couple of meetings.
Yes.
And thank you for being so prompt in coming to us with the issue, and we're very glad to have supported it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for having me.
No, glad to. Area report. Joe.
Good morning. Thank you. I think Amy has a couple of things that she's going to highlight at the start. So if it's all right, Amy, I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, I don't have a huge amount to highlight, but as the main thing is that, as you are all obviously aware, the council's annual plan is open for consultation at the moment. So you might want to today formally decide to make a submission on that. And I'm just having a quick look if there's anything else that I wanted to highlight. No, that was it from me.
So you would suggest that we move, that we adopt, that we move a resolution to submit on the annual plan to the council. We've already discussed it, but that's okay. Can I have a mover and a seconder on the annual plan, please?
And also just to delegate the final approval to the chair and deputy chair as part of that.
Yeah,
and I'd suggest that Melanie and I step back from that, obviously.
Yeah. So can I have a mover from the other three of you? Lee.
Can move.
Callum, moved, seconded. Keir, you've done nothing. Would you like to second on the annual plan?
I tried to second the bus stop, but someone else got it before me.
Sorry.
Yes, no, happy to.
I cannot see hands raised. I'm so sorry about that, Keir. If you could just say, that would be great. On the annual plan. And what was that was suggested to me? Anyway, just formally move that we submit on the annual plan. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, abstentions, carried. If I just go through the issues that staff have raised, capacity check resilient communities, Lansdowne Terrace Play Centre. I'd just like to say that the play centre at Lansdowne Terrace has been very resilient, and they work in a building that's not particularly apropos and not in particularly good nick either. But they sustain through volunteer activity the play centre, and I've had a great deal of respect for them. It would be great if one or two of the members for Cashmere could go and say hello, because they're an interesting group to talk to. Community profiles, community and youth service awards, etc. Oh, I should be asking staff to present and talk to us about this.
No, that's absolutely fine. I just thought Jay might just want to give a bit of an overview of the capacity check process.
Yes, that would be great.
Yeah. Do you want to speak to that, Jay?
Yep. Thank you. I'll take it that you've read through what the general themes were that came through. Yeah. We got in touch with 21 groups, mainly by phone and a bit of email follow-up. And just note that this was over a month ago. So by way of update, we have noticed that as the spread of the virus has occurred through Christchurch since then, the groups have done their best to proceed with caution. It is taking a lot of them longer to maybe do a little bit less, and we are getting some anecdotal feedback, concerns about rising costs, and that coupled with some of the loss of some of their fundraising opportunities. But in general, they're all keeping going as much as they possibly can.
I think you're right about this, and in recent days, it's the cost of living that's killing people in terms of their groceries, and of course petrol, and that was evidenced by the fact that Hoon Hay was collecting food for the Hoon Hay Food Bank and for that couple that lost their baby, and who had done so much in terms of organising food for people who can't afford it. As any other, Heather or Watane, have you got any other comments to make about any particular groups in your area?
Sorry, Watane is chiming in there.
Cool, yeah. Nothing to add for me. Jay sort of covered all of our areas when we did that sort of wee report. But thanks for leading that, Jay.
Watane, I hate to hand to you any particular issue, but would you have any comment through perhaps contact with suburbs or elsewhere? Do you think that there's any issues associated with them? I know, for instance, that Graham got quite a lot of food, and for the people in the Rowley community, and it was handed out to children and their families. Last week he was handing it out at the gate, actually, quite a lot of food. But would there be any issues for refugee Māori or Pacifico communities that would be different from the ordinary? I don't mean the ordinary. Well, what am I saying? Would there be any issues in terms of those communities that are particular?
Not that I'm aware, no. And I suppose the only thing I can comment on is from a I suppose sporting context is just sort of what Jay alluded to in terms of like unable to fundraise and just lack of patronage a little bit for some of the clubs, but nothing specific to any specific group or anything.
I can hear the baby.
Yeah, she just got woken up. Sorry.
Don't you dare apologise.
As long as you didn't wake her up.
Don't you dare apologise, Watane. I agree that the fundraising would be enormously problematic. Are any of the donors like Rata? Is there additional funds available at all? Can you tell, Jay?
I'm not aware of additional funds from Rata at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there's COVID relief funds, but they're they're tagged to a percentage of like loss of income, and for a lot of our groups they haven't had that significant loss, but they're still struggling, but just hasn't quite met the threshold for extra funding. And I do know, again anecdotally, that lotteries funding isn't as prevalent as it was a couple of years ago as well.
Do you mean people are gambling less? Do you think lotteries have got less money?
Yeah, who knows?
Gosh, that'd be a shock. I know. I don't know how Rowley gets the donations it does, but it does. And they're handing out. My son said they were handing out enormous amounts of food last week at the gate. But anyway, to carry on, any other comments that you've got, Jay?
Sorry, not at the moment. No.
Okay, so if we were looking at other things like the Community and Service Awards, we've had a few nominations recently, which we didn't have before, did we? We had a couple of youth ones, for example.
Yeah, and so that's closing tomorrow. I'm not actually sure what the current status is in terms of how many applications have come in, but yeah, hopefully Wendy will give us an update in the next couple of days.
Yeah. Then there was the night market and Innovating Streets, Selwyn Street project. I had some sympathy for the argument about temporary street changes. I'm not sure that is worth the money that we think it is. I think we should invest once and invest properly, but that's only a passing comment that I have.
And if you look at, say, what's happened in, say, Selwyn Street in Beckenham, that's where the ferry road, I think they just got ridiculous. Some of the costs that they spent on the temporary stuff is just stupid.
Yeah.
But, but I think when it comes to safety, never let the good, stand in the way of the or the perfect stand in the way of the good. It's better to get something safe in a temporary way, because temporary now, if we have to redo those pipes that we've been talking about, that's just come to light and all that type of thing, there's just more and more money going to things that people don't see, and we still got to cover these things.
Exactly. You're talking about asbestos in this morning's paper. God, yes.
Oh, yeah.
New lease at the Christchurch Gondola and opting and the business of multi-unit residential developments able to opt out of curbside collection. I think that's a mistake as well, but never mind. Are there any comments that people would like to make about the area report?
I've just got one. We know that staff are under pressure, so I was just wondering, through Joe, maybe, how are you guys going? Because we rely on you so much, and we just want to make sure that you guys are okay, and that is there anything we can do for you?
Thanks, Tim. I think I'd say one of the biggest challenges has definitely been the lack of ability to meet with community organisations. That's been just, I guess in the early days we all understood, but I think as time has gone on, it's felt like there's a real need to connect, and in some cases that needs to be in person. So that's been really challenging. We've just had a recent update to say that we will be able to now meet with community organisations in person. So probably more like on a one-on-one basis, and obviously, using masks and things like that. But that's really good news for us. So that's going to make a big difference. It does put limitations on some projects. There's projects where we would want to gather a group of people, and we haven't been able to do that. So it definitely changes what we can do, but I guess it pushes us to be a bit more creative in how we do things. So I guess I suppose the experience might be different for everybody on an individual level, but I think overall just not being able to meet in person has definitely thrown lots of challenges, and it will be nice once we can go back to doing much more of that. I think as Jay said, everyone is doing their best just to get on with things. So it's not like there's a feeling that things have come to a screeching halt or anything. but I definitely think there'll be a bit of a relief once we can actually meet in person and do some of the things that you just really can't do over technology.
Yeah. Thank you, Jo. When is your last meeting with us?
Today.
Is it today?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
No, sadly, yes. So yeah, I'll give you an update once I know who I'm handing the baton to. I don't know that yet. So I'll send an email just to let you know, and hopefully I know you'll be in great hands with Marie. And yeah, somebody else will work alongside Marie.
Can I just say, Jo, that you've been a very calming, considerate, thoughtful and respectful and knowledgeable influence on the board. You've been particularly good for someone like me who's not particularly calm. I've been really, really grateful for your involvement, your leadership, and your incredibly wise advice. And some of the board will not know the kinds of wise advice that you have given me over this last year or two, and I have been extremely grateful for it. You have been a solid citizen and a very smart person in terms of where to go and how to do it. So thank you, Jo, and we will miss you. I'm really sorry you're going. I'm glad you're staying in the community. Hohep is just down the road. We'll probably see you, but we will miss you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
That was really well said, Carolyn. That was really well. I can't say it better either. So I echo the same.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been a privilege working alongside you, and just so nice to see your dedication to the community and just the things you've achieved in the time that I've been working alongside you has just been really awesome. So I know you'll continue to be doing great things.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jo.
Elected, I'll have a mover and a seconder. I've got a mover and a seconder for the area report, haven't I?
Carolyn, can I just ask one question before we move? Amy, did we need to do anything in terms of the district plan?
No, Marie is actually going to bring a separate report about that to the next meeting. Yeah, cool. So that's all
great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Did I have a mover and a seconder? I'm not sure I did.
I'm happy to move it if you didn't.
You did. You had a mover and a seconder to make a submission on the annual plan, but now if you want to have another mover and a seconder just to receive the area report.
Okay.
Did we to do it? He hasn't done anything.
Okay. We voted on the annual plan, didn't we?
Yes. Yeah, that one's all done. So this is just receiving the report.
And so, in other words, I see, Jo, why you asked about the district plan. There isn't. We will submit on the district plan. We were to make that decision. Is that right?
Yeah,
Marie,
and so Amy, Marie's just going to bring that.
I'm just sort of asking the question because while I've got a report written in for the 2nd of May meeting, whether that could follow the same process as the annual plan one for this meeting and then not have to consider that report on the 2nd of, is that appropriate?
Well, we will submit on the district plan.
Yeah.
I think it's always best to have a separate report. So since there's time to do that for the district plan, you can, Marie can bring that to you at your next meeting and then you can make that formal decision then. Yeah.
Okay. Can I have a mover and a seconder to receive the area report?
Happy to move.
Thank you very much, Kier. Seconder?
I'll second.
Thanks, Tim. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, abstentions, carried. Good. Elected members information exchange, and I will start with the Deputy Chair.
Oh, hey, just to acknowledge the meeting, we actually, I think 3 or 4 of us attended with Bruce out in Kidaroa Terrace end of last week. Fruitful meeting in terms of meeting the Parks Ranger, Rodney, who's definitely got a can-do attitude, which I think was really endearing. But really good to see the residents already getting going with plantings and really trying to beautify their area. I think my understanding from that meeting is that staff are going to try and do what they can with operational budget at the moment, but there may be a couple of shortfalls. So you might hear the Rangers coming back maybe for a small bridge structure and stuff. So let's see what we can do under existing operational budget first, but they might come a calling, is what I took from that meeting. But yeah, Melanie came, Tim came, Keir came, and obviously the resident and Rodney. So it was just a good meeting. So, and again, great to see somebody wanting to beautify their area. So.
Yep, dead right. We've got a huge number of volunteers at the moment, which is great.
Yep.
Next one, Tim.
Thank you. I guess just couple of bigger picture things. You mentioned Rata. I think Callum mentioned Rata before or whatever. After the earthquakes, Rata did make a special advance kind of investment into the communities, and it's a one-off because their funding is retrospect from the investment. So the investment comes to term, they get the money, and that money is then spent the following year. But with regards to interest rates, etc., so that they're all up the whop at the moment, and so I'm suspecting that their payout in the future, as in next year, will be less than this year. So just be aware of that. So I think there's going to be far more pressure on our community groups and those organisations supporting them and supporting the communities. So just be aware of that. And the second one, which is it David Clark or David Parker is the Minister of Consumer, whatever it is. I've been contacted by 3 people who have young couples that have put money or made deposits for or townhouses, if you like, and they've got them back because of the situation. They've got sunset clauses, and so the cost of the apartment or whatever has risen, and in one case it rose to over the point where they could get the government subsidy. So there's a limit to, so anyway, and the minister's come back because a lawyer was saying that there should be more protection for people, and these clauses shouldn't be in there because of whatever reason, but they shouldn't be. But it's just a real shame that the minister was saying, well, the Consumer Act covers this and people can get a lawyer, etc. But these people have, they've gotten, there's no money for it. These people are at the end of the tether, I suppose. They've been hopeful, they've saved, and then they've been pulled out at the developers changed. And it may be absolutely, the costs have gone up, etc. So there's a lot of that happening at the moment. So it's not all beer and skittles out there for sure.
No.
So just thought I'd raise those 2 points so you're all aware of them.
Thank you, Tim. Mel.
Thank you. I just wanted to say there's a few different things, but about Joe, I just wanted to say that you've been really positive, and I was going to use the phrase can-do attitude that Lee had before. I wasn't listening fully to Carolyn's because I was dealing with something on my phone, but you've been an enabler, Joe, in the best possible way, because it's not without governance managers like you that we can get the work done that we do. So thank you. What I wanted to mention was Callum went to this, and Carolyn was there too. We went to the Addington Neighbourhood Association meeting 2 weeks ago, and the bridge was brought up, and Gareth talked about the history like he mentioned today. So they're very supportive of that. So that was great. I went to Spreydon Neighbourhood Network last night. It's the first meeting they've had in person since last year. And they had a lot of stuff to cover, and a lot of people kept talking over each other because they were quite excited to be back together, I think. But there was a lot of stuff about housing intensification. And there was a lot of their questions. So, but Sonia did recognise that actually she thinks it's maybe quite good that Spreydon's being intensified earlier than other suburbs, because they might have missed out on some of the 3-storey houses that they might have got and only have 2. So that was a positive. But so it's very much on their radar. And they're going to do some sort of submission to the council's have your say at the moment about housing. Another thing, I'm always in the middle of hearings panels, it seems, when I come to our meetings. I'm on one at the moment for the Antigua Street cycleway, so that section, and it's not obviously in our board area, but it does connect up the Quarryman's Trail into town. That bit that goes past Metro Sports Parakiori Centre. So yeah, that will be finished up this week. And lastly, but not least, I think in some ways, interestingly, it came to it's council is looking at doing some almost full street renewals and some streets that are connected to other projects that are being done. So there's some of this planned for over in Papanui, which I found interesting because I've never been able to get a list of which streets are in order for full street renewals to get rid of those deep gutters. And it seems, I don't know why that's difficult to get that list, because clearly there is a list, because this particular area that was talked about, it was yesterday, is clearly on some list somewhere. So I would love to get, if we can, a list of these, and so that we can know what's happening, because it was talked again about last night, I think, as well, and you talked about the deep ditches today with Rebecca, and you know, I was driving home in Hoonhay and we don't have them because our suburb was after that time, you know. So, and whereas the old parts of Hoonhay do still have them. So, yeah, I think it would be great if we can try and push a bit more from maybe a staff perspective to get that list so we can see what's happening. Because I was a bit irritated to hear that, because there's other areas that get done and this doesn't get brought up, you know.
I know.
Like down Dominion Air, for instance. Why didn't they do the other side of Dominion Ave when they put the cycleway in on the other side? Because this is the exact same situation as what's going to happen up in Papanui area. It makes no sense to me, but I didn't bring it up at the time.
If we could follow up on that, Amy and Marie, because the deep ditch gutters are an absolute pain in Spreydon because they're full of them, and every street's a deep ditch gutter. And it would be good to know if there is a list and where we are on the list. That's a good idea, Mel. Thank you for that. Kier?
Nothing major. Just went to the Summerfield Residents Association meeting last night. They were very pleased about the new signage in Sydenham Cemetery, and they were pleased about the new footpaths, so that was really good, just quite positive. They are concerned about the district plan changes, as you would probably expect. They have some thoughts about them, which I encourage them to submit to the council when that consultation is open. And they had a discussion about the Selwyn Street, you know, the sort of the works left over from the Innovating Street stuff that we're trying to get through on Selwyn Street. They had a discussion about that, and it might be good if we could maybe give them some information about where that project is up to, and whether there is anything that will happen and what the timeframes and stuff are. I think they're pretty understanding of what the constraints are, but they would just like some knowledge. And then a couple of other minor questions I'll just flick through to staff. But I'll put that in an email about the Selwyn Street stuff so that there's a bit of a record of it. But I think that was their, they knew that there was something that might or might not happen and just wanted some clarity. So it would be good just to get that, something so they can sort of table at the next meeting or whatever.
Thank you, Kier. That's a really good point to raise. Callum?
Yep, just a couple of things. Firstly, I got some correspondence which I've forwarded to the board from Joe Robertson in Addington around the number of vape shops that have opened up in Addington, and I think just her concerns, and I think concerns of some of the residents just around kind of the amenity of the area, not wanting it just to become a kind of substance dispensary main drag. So I mean, I think obviously the council's authority when it comes to, doesn't really reach into the realms of, determining what businesses can open where at all. So, I mean, I'm not expecting that, but just wondering, it'd probably be good. I'd like to be able to give us some information maybe around if there is any council role when it comes to licensing things like vape shops like there is for alcohol. I don't believe there is, but yeah, that'd be good. The other thing was I got a message from a resident of Spencer Street who has basically discovered that the Eddington toilets are again being used as a sort of hookup spot. So what I basically said to her was, it is a bit of a whack-a-mole situation where it kind of gets shut down, then it pops up again, and it's not how you'd want a space that's next to a public park and a primary school being used. But I think the ultimate solution, I mean, for me, it just kind of reinforced that we really need to be focusing on actually just making that space a place that's built well for public safety. Like those toilets need to be revamped. So I've sort of said that to her as well. But in the meantime, I'm not sure if there's anything we can do about that other than just send a security guard down or something, every so often. But
the safest things for that park to be well used, so that
absolutely,
So
totally,
the interesting thing would be how we could make it a well-used park.
And I think part of that is making those toilets feel safe and that area to be well lit. Melanie, you had something to say about that, did you?
No, it made me think of another thing that came up at SNN last night about something different, but safety.
Okay.
You just wonder what could be played, like what could be adventurous or fun or terrific for kids that would make it a tag, make it a destination.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think even just having toilets there that are where the doors to enter the toilets are in good public view, and the cubicle toilets, kind of like they have at Margaret Mahey Playground, where it's just one person goes into one door, and you don't have people following each other in. That would just be a million times better.
Some part of me says they have to have a meeting place somewhere.
Well, they do. That's the other thing as well. Like I think that sort of behaviours. I mean, there's a time and a place. I'm not saying it should be criminal, but and there are places for it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Is it? I went to Tennyson Street at 2:30. No, sorry, I'm not being coherent here. Yesterday was my birthday, and I was going to breakfast at Sumner, and I stopped on Tennyson Street at 8:30 and stayed there for 12 minutes. I left it just before 1:45, and three adults went into Norwood Street from south side, from Southampton side. One adult had two children on bikes with her, and the other adult was walking with a young girl, and the third adult was on a bike. And that's what I saw going into Norwood Street across Tennyson Street. In the meantime, but conversely, I have to say that I had never seen a busier street than Tennyson at that time. It was absolute bedlam. And I've never seen anything like it, the traffic, and I don't know where it's coming from. I talked to Amy briefly about it. I'd just love to know why Tennyson has got so much traffic, which should be on Brougham or Centaurus Road or one of the higher profile streets. But that was my comment to make about that crossing at school time yesterday morning. Hoon Hay Food Bank, Mel and I went to the Hoon Hay Food Bank. They were trying to recover, help the people who lost their baby, who have been sustaining a food bank for a long time in Hoon Hay. But the thing I took away from it was when I asked Jenny if there was anything else that they needed in terms of the donations to the food bank, she said we need period products. So I went off and got some. And what I'm trying to say is that isn't it good when people can talk about normal human functions like that and say this is what people need, and they do need period products. I had a phone call about fluoride from a woman who was convinced that TY points, there's a byproduct from TY pointers fluoride. But apart from that, she was 94 and she was smart as a whip, and talking to me about fluoride in the water. The dairy and the little cottage on Lincoln Road, the dairy's been refurbished, and Mel pointed this out to me, and it was that it had been refurbished and you no longer have to take the step down into it, and it's been cleaned up and it's got new furnishings and new shelves and all that sort of thing. And the same owner has taken over the cute little house next door, the refurbished little house, which used to be Moa, or I think it was Moa. Anyway, the little house has now become a coffee bar. They haven't been able to persuade people to come in because apparently a customer had dropped right off previously in that little dairy because it's difficult to access. And it's being run by a member of the Comte family, COMTE, and the Comte family used to own all that land around there, apparently. So if people could be persuaded to go into that little dairy and encourage them in their coffee bar next door in the little cottage, that'd be good. And that's about it from, I went to Beckenham Street at 3 p.m. a couple of days ago as well to see how the little crossing was going. I'm sort of unpersuaded in a way by the temporary thing in Beckenham Street. It's such a short little street. But anyway, I went and saw it. The teachers like it. They think it has made it the temporary U-shaped thing, and the lack of parking there has made it safer. Thank you. Amy, I saw a lot of texts coming through, which I didn't get a chance to read at the top of my screen. Is there anything that I should raise before I finish the meeting?
No, nothing, nothing that you need to raise.
I think there was stuff about Tennyson Street, wasn't there? Was there?
Oh, do you mean
the words
emails?
Tennyson Street coming across?
Oh, yep. So after this meeting finishes, hop off this Zoom call, and then at 10 a.m. join a separate Zoom link for the joint meeting on Tennyson Street. And if you want to have a look at your emails before then, I've sent a couple emails about that joint meeting as well.
Okay, that's great to know. Anybody else want to comment and say anything?
Happy belated birthday, Carolyn.
Yeah.
What's that?
Happy belated birthday.
Yeah. I remembered.
Yeah, there's always one suck up.
So one birthday I know of all you guys. Can I just, the one thing I forgot to mention, because there was actually heaps of stuff last night at SNN, is that they had a new lady come and she talked about safety at the bus stop on Athelston Street, not the one we've upgraded, but the other one on the other side of the road by the mall. And so they're going to, she's already written a letter and apparently sent it to someone in council, but she couldn't say who. And so the SNN are going to support her with forwarding her her letter on about it, because she thinks there's a number of safety issues with that bus shelter. It's not the same as the other ones. It's quite closed in and has a drain and things in it. So I'm just mentioning that, because I wasn't aware I never go into that bus shelter.
Because when that was put in, when that came to us, wasn't there an issue because the distance, the width of the footpath was quite slim, and to maintain people going access past? I don't know. There was something about it, but okay, it'd be interesting to see that letter.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see that letter as well. Amy, if Tony hasn't come back to me on the space around the bus stop on Barrington Street, and because I just don't think it's adequate in terms of people going past it. I'm just wondering if you would let Tony know. I'd be interested to hear if she's done any further work on that.
On Barrington Street?
Yes.
Which one?
It's right down the bottom near the early childhood centre where the church was. the board actually visited it when the bus stop was going to be installed, and it's one that one side of the bus stop comes right out, and I don't think it allows adequate access going past it for people with pushchairs or walking disabilities.
Right. Okay.
And I've raised it before. Yeah.
Yeah, I can ask her that question.
Just say, just a gentle reminder, because I know Tony's got a lot of work. I don't want to stress her out by saying I'm ticking anybody off or anything. I'm just wondering if there was any comment that she had to make on that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If there's nothing else, Tim?
Oh, is it? Okay. Tēnā koutou, kuhan mai nei, ki tēnei whare o tātou, ki te koreri, ki te whakaronga, ki nei ka papa o tai hapori, nei me tātai mai tēnei koutou katoa.
Kia ora, Tim. See you in 10 minutes.